Good afternoon and welcome to my virtual class. My name is Klaus Antonissen and I will be your teacher today. I'm glad you could all make it for my lesson, which is about applying the verb to wish to things that took place in the past. Our class is at Canadian Language Benchmark Level 5. Congratulations to you all. The length is very short, so you're going to have to hurry right along. Making wishes to fix past regrets is what we'll be focusing on through writing, listening, and speaking skills, and the focus, of course, is on grammar. At the end of this class, I'm hoping you students will be able to, should be able to, apply the verb to wish in a general way 5 times orally. Apply the verb to wish to things that happened in the past by identifying regret in a third conditional sentence and wishing to alter it 3 times in 4 different ways. And also to convert third conditional sentences into wishes and back again orally in groups. So when you came into class today, you probably noticed these sentences that are already on our board. If you've looked through them, great. If you haven't, don't worry about it because we'll be coming back to them several times today. For instance, let's focus on these 2 sentences right away. Last class we talked about the third or past conditional, talked about things that didn't happen but we imagined would, could, or might have. And we remember that regrets and impatience seems to be the cause of most of these imaginings. That is a desire that we could change the past somehow. So, do we remember Joe and Tony, for instance? No? Well, if you remember, there was a party they were invited to, and one went and one stayed home, and they had things to say about it after. Amy, can you remind us what Joe says? That's right. Did Joe go to the party? Yeah, he did go to the party. But was he glad he went to the party? No, that's right. He regretted it. And what had he wanted to do instead? He wanted to watch his TV show. That's right. And how could he have done it? Thanks again, Amy. That's right, if he'd stayed at home. Frank, could you read what Tony says? Thanks. Now, did Tony go to the party? Yeah, he did go, didn't he? Was he glad he went to the party? No, he regretted it. Because he could have met some nice girls there, right? That's what he thinks. And how could he have done that? That's right, Frank. Thank you. If he'd gone to the party. So what we have is our 2 clauses, our if clause, which these 2 sentences begins the sentence, our third conditional sentence, and then we have the main clause. The if clause uses the past perfect, as we recall, and the main clause uses the modal, could have, would have, should have, with the past participle of whatever verb applies, in this case watched or met. Okay, now that we can remember what we're up to, let's see if we can come up with a few other third conditional sentences. Anyone? Excellent, Frank. If I had not been late for the interview, I could have gotten the job. With our past perfect in the if clause that sets up the condition, and the could have, the modal, with the past participle in the main clause, which displays our imagined or unreal reality, the alternative history that we're trying to create. And why could, Frank, instead of would? That's right, because we're talking about ability to do something, and not just the possibility that something happened. Anyone else? Amy? Yes, that's another great sentence. If Ahmed had wanted to be nice, he would have shared his dessert. The past perfect in the if clause and the modal with the past participle shared in the main clause. And why would, Amy? That's right, because Ahmed had the ability. He just didn't want to. He wasn't being nice, so the possibility wasn't really there. So we use would. And one more sentence. Anyone? Frank again? Sure, Frank. Another good one. We would have answered the phone if we had been at home. And that one we start with the main clause and the modal and the past participle answered, and end with the if clause in the past perfect. And since we reverse them, what happens? That's right, we leave the comma out. Excellent. So, for the last few classes, we've been talking so much about our desires for impossible and unlikely things in the present or in the future, or about frustration and regrets about things that have happened in the past. So today I'd like to talk about something a little more positive. I'd like to try to fix these problems that we've created in these conditional sentences. And there's one way to do that. How do you change an impossible thing? With magic. The magic of wishing. But in order to do so, first we have to know a little bit about, how to make these wishes. So, here we go. So for the most part, the verb to wish works pretty much like any other verb. It's what we're wishing for that makes some conjugations more complicated, as we'll see in a moment. But you can either wish for something general, such as these sentences: I wish you luck, she wishes you health, and you can see that's just the present simple, I and she as pronouns, and the conjugation to follow. They wished me, past simple, they wished me a happy birthday. Or you can wish for something particular as opposed to a general condition like luck or health. She wished for a diamond ring. He wishes for a brand new car. Again, the conjugation is pretty straightforward. Probably no questions about that, right? Good, because today we're interested in a more conditional kind of wishing. And let's look at that right away. So I think at this point we can say we start to notice that while wishes are, good things, we usually make them because of things that aren't so good, things we wish to change. For instance, Amy, why would we wish for a brand new car? Yeah, because there's a problem with the old one, or we don't even have one. Frank, why would we wish for a diamond ring? Yeah, because we couldn't afford one. So what is a wish? A wish is something that implies a condition that we desire to change, and so we imagine unreal, unlikely, or impossible situations, present, past, or future, where that condition has magically changed. Sounds a bit familiar, right? Thinking about our conditional sentences. But because we're new to wishing, today we're not going to talk about wishes for the present and future. Instead, we'll just stick to wishes that have to do with imagining an alternative past. So here are the conditional sentences we've just come up with, the third conditional sentences, which are imagining a condition in the past that we would like to change, that we would like to alter. And let's just write this idea, I wish, underneath. And let's see if we can change these things with a few well-placed wishes. All right, well, let's look at this first sentence first. Let's also just quickly remind ourselves that we don't have to say had not. When we're speaking, we could say hadn't, probably should. Same with could have, we could say could have. Okay? But let's think about the sentence in terms of wishing now. Gerhard, let's imagine that it was you that said this sentence. Reading it now, I'm going to ask you, Gerhard, did you get the job that you were after? No, you didn't, did you? Are you glad about it? Just by looking at that sentence? No, I think you can say that you aren't glad, that you regret it, that you wish you could change that, create an alternative to that in the past. And what might have helped you get that job, Gerhard? Yes, if you hadn't been late for the interview. And the condition that you would like to change is right there, if I had not been late for the interview. That's right. So, now Gerhard, if we were to say, I wish, what would you say? What would you wish for to be able to get that job? That's excellent, Gerhard. You're quite right. I wish I hadn't been late for the interview, or as I'm talking, you wish you hadn't been late for the interview, right? And then now we see why we've been talking so much about the third conditional, because indeed we can use the same past perfect in this clause for just before the I wish. I had been, past perfect, of the conjugation of the verb to be, with the nt or the not stuck in between. So that's excellent, Gerhard, but what if I told you that your wish didn't have to come in the if clause, that you could actually deal with the other part of the sentence, make a wish about the other part of the sentence? How do you think you would create that sentence? I wish, right again, Gerhard, I picked the right guy to answer these questions, I guess. I wish I could have gotten a job. I wish I could have gotten a job. And we can see, again, how the sentence mirrors the third conditional, how we use the modal verbs, could have, with the past participle gotten, past participle of got, of get, to get, and we create the sentence. Now I've written I'd have underneath as a substitute for I could have gotten, but I realize now that's not quite accurate, because I'd have is a shortening of would have. And we're really talking about ability here. He didn't have the ability, Gerhard didn't have the ability because he was late for the interview. Not just possibility, they didn't not give it to him for a random reason. So it's not I would have gotten a job, I could have gotten a job. I could have gotten it. So that's two ways you can get a wish out of a third conditional sentence. Now let's look at a couple others. And we can add this, we can create these wishes by adding an extra person in there. So I'm talking to Gerhard and we're talking about Leo. And Leo who said, if I had not been late for the interview, I could have gotten the job. So how do we make that into wishes? Well, we take the verb wish, and as we talked about before, we conjugate it in a normal fashion. So Leo said it yesterday, so we're going to assume he wished it yesterday. He might be wishing it now, but let's just go with what's written here and say that he wished it yesterday. So the sentences, the wishes, turn out to be, Leo wished he had not been late for the interview. Same verb conjugation after that, the past perfect in the negative sense, and then Leo wished he could have gotten the job. Once again, the modal with the past participle of the verb to get. So there's two more ways. So that's 4 ways out of 1 sentence. So let's look at our grammatical layout chart here about how this is working. So we create one wish from the if clause, which starts with our subject, subject 1, whoever's doing the wishes, and then with the verb to wish, which is properly conjugated according to the subject and the time, past simple or past present, or what have you, and then subject 2, whoever the wish is supposed to affect, and the past perfect. We wish subject to had run, or had jumped, or had eaten. Or in our second version, the version that comes from the main clause, we have subject 1 again, who's doing the wishing, the verb to wish conjugated appropriately, subject 2, whoever the wish is going to affect, and then we have the modal with the past participle. I wish he would have run, would not have jumped, could have eaten, right? Now I've written here that we don't use might, and you'll notice that it's not quite true that we sometimes do use might, but when you think about it, a wish is something that we definitely want to happen. So when we're using the word might, it might happen, it might not, we're not sure. Well, we're sure with a wish. We want it to happen. So instead of might have, you probably should use could. So we're not really going to wish she might have arrived on time or wish he might have been here. We're going to wish she would have arrived or wish he could have been here. Okay? So everyone get a pen and paper, and we'll return to these 2 other sentences, each of which you should be able to get 2 wishes from, and I want you to write them down. And then I'm going to add Carol says in front of one, and Radek and Amy said in front of the other, and that should allow you to make 2 more wishes for each third conditional sentence. So take 5 minutes, and we'll return to that in a second. So now, through the miracle of science, we step through a space-time continuum. We ask the students the results of their work, and hopefully you get something like these answers. If not, we make sure that the students find out what was wrong with their answers and we correct them. Here are the answers to the first 2 sentences. And these, of course, would be the answers to the second 2 sentences. Feel free to pause it if you really want to have a good look, but I think we will move straight on. So that was very well done, everybody. Now, let's do a little free practice. Should be a little fun. So let's divide the class into groups of 3. If you can't get into groups of 3, make sure it's an uneven number. If you can't get an uneven number, then you've got to ask teacher to join. So let's do that. Thanks very much. Now the rules of the game work something like this. Don't worry if you don't understand it. The next slide shows an example and it will be much clearer, okay? So step 1, whomever each group chooses to start will make a wish. It must be about the past and start with I wish. Step 2, the next person will attempt to create a third conditional sentence beginning with the if clause and using that wish in it. Step 3, the last person will take the main clause of that third conditional sentence and turn it into a wish. And step 4, the process continues with the next person who creates a new third conditional sentence, and so on. So the progress of the game looks something like this. Person 1, I had wished I had been a better skater. Person 2, third conditional sentence, if I had been a better skater, I would have played more hockey. Person 3 takes the main clause, turns that into a new wish. I wish I could have played more hockey. Now back to person 1, who takes that wish and turns it into a new third conditional sentence. If I had played more hockey, I would have been in better shape. Person 2 takes the main clause and turns that into another wish. I wish I had been in better shape. Person 3 makes a new third conditional phrase. If I had been in better shape, I would not have gotten sick as often. And so on, and so on. And if the chain breaks down, students should remember just to start it again with a new wish. Now just be aware, if that sounds too easy to you, While you're doing that, teacher's going to be around helping for sure, but also asking sometimes the students, sometimes the whole class, to give their next answer as if it was Paulo making the wish, or Elena, or both of them together, or to make the wish as if they'd wished it yesterday or last week, or even to make their wish using the modal, have, and past participle that comes in the main clause of most third conditional sentences, so that the next person can try to use it in the main clause of their third conditional sentence rather than the if clause. And don't worry, we'll explain it as we go. So that was a great class today. Thanks a lot for coming, and thanks for giving me your attention. I really appreciate it. And in closing, I'd like to ask you to think about today's lessons at home. Consider what you found out regarding the structures of sentences using the verb to wish and their association with third or past conditional sentences. In light of what you've learned, you should make some attempt at seeing how the second conditional, how those sentences might be applied to create a different kind of sentence that uses the same verb, to wish. You should attempt to create 3 sentences using the second conditional and see what you can derive from each of these sentences in terms of wishes. You should also try to derive some conclusions from those wishes, such as to what time frame they might be applied and what verb tenses they might use and why. Thanks, and have a great night. See you next time.